Hi, I'm Max, and in this video we will take a look at Cardano and Polkadot, and we will compare them. Now, the reason why I'm making this video, and this is going to be a long video because it's impossible to compare these two projects in a short way. There's just too many things we need to look at. But the reason why I'm making this video is because a few days ago I saw on the Cardano Reddit a comparison between Cardano and Polkadot, and it was entirely BS'd. It wasn't honest at all. It was clearly putting in the lead, like placing Cardano in the lead, placing it in the spotlight compared to Polkadot, which I think is really unfair, especially when taking into consideration the fact that, well, Polkadot actually works, while Cardano is still in development. And full disclosure, I'm a Cardano stake pool operator. I'm not involved with Polkadot. However, I guess I like the project. I like Polkadot. I like the way they've done things. I think they have very interesting ways of doing things, and I think they are one of the major players which has a chance of competing with Ethereum. So, in this video, we will only look at what really matters, right? Don't care about the supply, don't care about who is behind it, then there's no point in comparing that. What matters is the economics, the smart contracts, the ecosystem, the focus, these types of things. So, first, it's important to note that these two projects have an entirely different focus. Polkadot is specifically focused on being a blockchain of blockchains and has a more geographically speaking, a more global focus, kind of like Ethereum, right? There's no specific region they are targeting. While Cardano, on the other side, is targeting specifically Japan and developing countries, and in that regard, specifically Africa, right? And Cardano is at the moment kind of trying to become, like, it's not clear. It's not clear because in some way you could call it a smart contract blockchain. But on the other hand, smart contracts will be based on Cardano CL, which is the computation layer, which is a side chain of the settlement layer, which is the current chain. So in a way, Cardano is also a blockchain of blockchains, even if it's not marketing it that way as Polkadot is doing. So, in terms of decentralization, now, decentralization is something which is very important to note, because you can talk about decentralization in terms of network. You can also talk about decentralization in terms of who is actually leading the project. And in regards with the network, you could argue that Cardano is definitely the winner, right? Cardano has more than 1,000 stake pools running. Polkadot has around 250 at the time of making this video, if I'm not mistaken. So Cardano is the clear winner. However, and that's where, again, it's very unfair, in my opinion, to compare, to just say, okay, well, stake pools, validators, Cardano has, I don't know, 5 times as much, Cardano is the winner. No, it just doesn't work that way. And the reason why it doesn't work that way is because in Cardano, there are no risks involved in regards with your stake when you create a stake pool or when you delegate to a stake pool. However, with Polkadot, when you act not in concordance with the network, so when you act essentially maliciously, even if you didn't do it on purpose, which already happened in the past with Cardano, where stake pool operators did something which hurted the network, while they didn't do it on purpose. So this happens. You will, what we call, be slashed. What that means is that a part or the entirety of the stake of the validator will be removed, essentially, and will disappear. So, as a validator, there's a clear risk, right? It's not free money, if I may say it like that, like it's the case on Cardano. There are risks, and because of that, it makes total sense that there are less validators on Polkadot compared to Cardano. It just makes sense, right? And on top of that, it's also incredibly important to note that because there is this risk, people who own DOTs, so the token of the Polkadot ecosystem, are also kind of less incentivized to delegate it to a validator because, again, there are risks. So obviously it's also more difficult for these validators to expand their activities because they have less delegators essentially, or at least the delegators are less incentivized due to their risks to delegate and put their DOT tokens at work. So that's very important. Now, in regards with this is for the network itself. Now, in regards with the development of the projects, it's clear that Polkadot is much more decentralized, right? Polkadot has an entire ecosystem of teams leading the project. They have already governance. Their system is already fully centralized. There is no single entity leading the projects. While with Cardano, at the moment, you only have a handful of entities, and actually one specifically, IOHK, which is leading the projects. In Polkadot, you have the Web3 Foundation, but they are not leading the project anymore. Right now, it's governance. It's only the DOT token holders. Again, very important. So, in terms of network, you could argue that that Cardano has the leads. And in terms of developments, Polkadot has clearly the lead. Now, in regards with what that also means regarding the risks involved with validating on Polkadot, it also means that the people who run validators on top of Polkadot are much more committed towards the network than the people running stake pools are on Cardano. And the reason why is because, again, there are risks, right? If you knew that if you know that there are risks creating a stake pool Cardano, would you create a stake pool so easily? I highly doubt it. You would hesitate, and you would think about it twice. And that's also probably the reason why there are less validators on top of Polkadot. But it also means that it's much easier to create a stake pool on Cardano, which means that you will be less committed towards the protocol, right? Because you are taking less risks to participate in consensus. While with Polkadot, because there are risks involved, the barrier to entry is higher, and because of that, the people crossing that barrier are people who truly care about the project, who will not hesitate to build stuff on top of Polkadot, and so on. Well, in Cardano, it's less the case, right? There are obviously stake pools, and we are an example of that actually, who are committed towards the protocol and building stuff on top of the protocol and trying to get adoption. But the majority of the stake pools are just being stake pools, nothing more. Again, I'm not trying to be in favor of Cardano nor in Polkadot. This is fully unbiased, and this may overcome as bad towards Cardano or bad towards Polkadot. I'm just laying out the truth there, right? It's just what it is. So, in terms of economics, I think both projects are things which are very interesting. Cardano has this native token ID where, on Ethereum, when you want to transact ERC20 tokens, you need to pay a fee in Ether, the currency of the network. Well, in Cardano, you will normally be able to pay your fees in the token you're transacting. So you could be able to pay, for example, your fees. If that was the case on Ethereum, you would be able to pay your fees, transaction fees, in ERC20 tokens, which is insane, right? It's crazy. So that's really interesting. On top of that, your stake pools are clearly incentivized to accumulate as much ADA as possible to get their pledge up and to be more profitable. This will be especially the case when a zero, so the pledge factor on the network, is updated by IOHK. So that's it for the Cardano side of things. Now, in regards with Polkadot, as I said before, Polkadot is a blockchain of blockchains, and they've built their system from the ground up to be a blockchain of blockchains. And so if you want to connect your blockchain to the Polkadot network, so essentially that means you want to become a parent chain. On Cardano we would call that a side chain, and on Ethereum we would call that a shard. Different terms, but at the end of the day it's basically the same thing, right? It's just a blockchain connected towards blockchain connected on another blockchain and benefiting from the security of the main chain. And in that regard, these parachains, they need to lock up DOT tokens in order to be elected as a parachain, which is incredibly interesting, because what that means is that the growth of the network is directly linked to the price appreciation of the DOT token, because the more the Polkadot ecosystem grows, the more pirate chains there are, the more DOT tokens will be locked up, the higher the price of the DOT token. So Polkadot has, in my opinion, very interesting token economics. I would love to see that actually coming on Cardano, whether it's with some kind of similar system for sidechains, these type of things. I think it's very interesting, and I think they have clearly figured out a great way of doing things in that regard. Now, regarding governance, there's no governance yet on Cardano. However, we already know that liquid democracy is on its way. And what liquid democracy is, in my opinion, the perfect mix between representative democracy and direct democracy, right? Direct democracy is like they used to do it in ancient Greece, where all of the population would group on the central place of the town, and then they would directly vote themselves on proposals. So you had one guy up there, he would speak up and say the proposal, and they would vote yes, no, and that's it, right? It's the population votes directly on the proposals. That's it, nothing more. And representative democracy is this idea where it's actually mostly the case in Western countries. Here in Belgium, we have that. And what that means is that you have politicians, and you vote for these politicians, and these politicians represent you in the parliament. That's representative democracy. Direct democracy is very hard to do because it's, getting the votes from all the population when you have tens of millions of people living in your country, difficult. And they are likely not specialized, I guess, in the subjects they need to vote on, while representative democracy makes it harder actually to be well represented, because again, you are voting on someone else, and sometimes you are forced to vote, right? Here in Belgium, you are forced to vote, which means that you need to vote. Even if there is no politician which suits you, you're forced to vote. So in that regard, these systems are not ideal. They each have their flaws. And liquid democracy allows you to either vote directly yourself on proposals. So if you say, okay, I know that subject, I will vote myself, you can do it. Or you can say, okay, I trust this guy, and we will delegate our votes, and I will delegate my votes to this guy, and this guy will then vote for me. And so with Cardano, we will probably see the emergence of real protocol politicians, because the system actually is made that way, right? The system incentivizes people to get votes from other people so they have more power in the network. And so we will probably see the emergence of these protocol politicians. Now, in regards with Polkadot, they have a very interesting system where it's mostly direct democracy, so you vote yourself directly on the proposals, and they have a council, as well as a technical committee. What that means is that the council acts as, you could call it, a backstop in case a malicious proposal got adopted through governance and will hurt the network. So, and then the council can veto that proposal, and the council can also submit proposals. Now, in regards with the technical committee, the technical committee is, you could call it, an emergency technical backstop, where they can quickly submit technical proposals and get them adopted pretty quickly, so that if there is something wrong with the network, it can quickly get resolved. Now, the council is elected, and the technical committee is made of teams who are building on top of Polkadot. So this notion of this council and this technical committee is very interesting, because it means that you can still solve issues which you can solve through governance, right? An example is, for example, I send, let's say, for example, 10,000 dots tokens to a wrong address, and now I lost them, right? Well, I can still, and this actually happened, by the way, this actually happens in the past with Polkadot. Not the same exact situation, but it's a very similar situation where someone lost money and they were actually able to get it back through the council or the technical committee, not sure. Either way, these backstops act as a way to make sure that governance is going in the good way and not the wrong way, and and also is able to do things which the general governance isn't able to do. And so you don't have that level of the code is law, like like is the case with Ethereum, for example, where, you know, if you just send Ether to the wrong address, well, it's lost. there's no one which can do anything about it. On Polkadot there is, and it will be interesting to see whether or not Cardano implements a similar mechanism in regards with this council and this technical committee. We'll see, I guess. Now, in regards with the state of developments, that's very interesting. It's very important because, again, in this review, in this comparison on the Cardano Reddit, that person didn't even mention the state of developments, which is crazy because Polkadot is actually fully functional, right? Polkadot works. Cardano doesn't. We have to be honest here. Cardano doesn't, right? There is already staking. Okay, that's great, but you still can't use it. You can make transactions. Okay, great, but you still can't use it. There are no smart contracts, no side chains, no governance. Polkadot, they're everything. Right? It's fully functional, and they are already fully decentralized. So, in regards with that, there's a clear lead from Polkadot, and especially because Polkadot has already a whole ecosystem on top of it. Right? You have Akala Network, you have Ocean Protocol, Edgeware. All of these projects are already building and have already actually, some of them have already functional networks, like Edgeware, for example, on top of Polkadot, which is not the case with Cardano. Cardano hasn't even an ecosystem yet. It just doesn't exist. You have, I guess you could call it a few projects which have announced that they will be building on top of Cardano, whether it's Singularity Nets, whether it's Liquid Protocol, or Boundly, I think it's called. But at the end of the day, that's very small compared. That's just a handful of projects compared to the tens of teams who are building on top of Polkadot and which have already the necessary funding. So, in that regard, there is a major difference. And on top of that, it's also important to note that these two projects have their own source of funding, right? Cardano has Project Catalyst, Polkadot has the Web3 Foundation, and Project Catalyst is pretty much, right now at least, and this is subjective, it's my personal view, but it's more funding like single individuals. It's more like little projects, I guess. While the Web3 Foundation has been giving grants to a ton of major teams. And so the ecosystem is, even if you could consider that Cardano will have an ecosystem in the next few months built on top of it, the ecosystem of Polkadot will probably be much bigger, mainly just because it's just made of teams. Well, Cardano is still some little individuals, single individuals who are planning to build up Cardano. Finally, it's also very important to note that Polkadot has a major, tremendous, incredible, massive, gigantic advantage, which is that they have actually a real test network, right? With the ITN, it was initially planned to do the same, but unfortunately, and I think it's due to the poor design of that vote, the votes didn't go through, and so it was rejected, and because of that, the ITN will no longer exist. And because of that, Cardano will not have, I guess, a testnet with real money. While Polkadot has Kusama, and Kusama is fully centralized, real, with real money. Kusama, you can actually buy the token on exchanges. It's real money. It's not just fake money like usually on testnets. So it's a testnet with real funds, real smart contracts, real everything, and it's specifically made to try out things before building them on top of Polkadots. And so you can essentially build first things on Kusama, see how they work, and then only when you're sure, move them over to Polkadots. And that's a major advantage, right? It's an incredible advantage because it allows you to guarantee that first you will massively reduce the bloat, I guess you could call it on the main chain, right? Because Ethereum, when you look at Ethereum, there are a ton of smart contracts, of transactions which have been made, which are literally useless, which take a massive amount of space in the blockchain, which make it more difficult to operate a node because you need more space, and which make it slower. And so Polkadot solves this by having Kusama, which is literally an incentivized testnet like on Cardano. But unfortunately, the ITN didn't go through on Cardano. So that's very unfortunate. And so that's again a major advantage for Polkadots. Now, I would like to finish with the similarities between the two projects. I think the two projects have a lot of similarities in regards with interoperability, right? Polkadot is all about interoperability. Cardano too, actually. Even if Cardano has also major focus on contracts, it's less interoperability focused than Polkadot. And at the end of the day, I think these two projects have shots at actually competing with Ethereum. However, and I'm going to be honest here, and this is coming from a Cardano stake pool operator, if I had if I had, I guess, $10 million to invest, and I had to pick one project, I would choose Polkadot. And the reason why is because right now, and I'm saying this at the moment, it's the project which is the most likely to succeed. Because again, it has an entire ecosystem already. It's fully functional. It has great economics, it has already governance, it has already everything. While Cardano will probably take, I guess, another year before it's fully functional. I think by the end of 2021, will hopefully have side chains and governance as well as smart contracts, obviously. And because of that, it will take a ton of time before all that happens. And so, again, by that time, there will be already a ton of power chains on top of Polkadots, and the ecosystem will have grown a lot. So, yeah, I guess that's the comparison. Fully unbiased, like I said before. Unbiased to the point that I'm actually supporting the adversary, the competing camp of Mr. Longnets. So, to recap, I think it's incredibly important to note that these two projects have a different focus, right? One is publicly stating that they want to become the blockchain of blockchains, a kind of layer zero, a kind of meta protocol connecting all these other protocols. Polkadot, they say publicly, they have great marketing. Cardano still kind of selling it as a smart contract blockchain. Not really well, it's actually a blockchain of blockchains. Not really clear in that regard. The two projects have, in my opinion, a fair shot at competing with Ethereum, but Polkadot has just a very serious lead, in my opinion. That's just how it is. We have to be fair here. There is still a ton of things. Still a ton of things to build on top of Cardano, and I haven't even mentioned actually the developer tools, which are available on Polkadot, which are apparently incredible. Whether it's substrates or these types of tools, which allow you apparently to create in just a few hours your own power chain. It's apparently it's incredibly easy, which kind of makes it even harder actually for Cardano to compete. So again, fully unbiased. I think this review was actually more in favor of Polkadot, to be honest, even if I'm a big fan of Cardano. Yeah, I guess that's it. We will see how the projects evolve by the end of 2021. I think by the end of 2021, hopefully, Cardano will be fully functional, and then we'll be able to compare, technically speaking, precisely how these two projects compare to each other. So, if you like this video, please consider following us on Twitter. Twitter is our priority at POApool. Twitter.com at POApool, at POApool, at POApool, at POApool. Follow us, please. It's actually twitter.com/POApool. And yeah, we tweet on a daily basis. Make sure to like the video. Make sure to follow us, whether it's again on Twitter or on YouTube. Please leave a comment if you like this video. And yeah, see you soon, I guess. Bye.